The market attack. Marcus Chun wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided the massive cargo container into its designated slot. The mechanical arms of his loader suit hissed and clicked with each movement, responding to his practiced commands. Another day, another shipment processed on Olympus 7, humanity's largest orbital trade station. The work was hard and the pay was modest, but Marcus didn't mind. He had joined the station crew 3 years ago after his construction company back on Earth went bankrupt. At 42 years old, starting over hadn't been easy, but the stars offered opportunities that the crowded streets of Shanghai never could. The loading bay was busy as always, filled with the sound of machinery and the chatter of workers from a dozen different species. Marcus had grown accustomed to working alongside aliens. The tall, gray-skinned variety with their 4 arms made excellent heavy lifters. The small, quick picks were perfect for detailed inventory work. And humans, well, they were adaptable enough to fill whatever role was needed. Marcus considered it one of humanity's greatest strengths. They weren't the strongest or the smartest species in the galactic community, but they could learn, adjust, and survive in almost any situation. As he finished securing the container, his supervisor's voice crackled through his comm unit. "Chun, you're clear for lunch break. 2 hours before the next shipment arrives." Marcus acknowledged and carefully maneuvered his loader's suit back to the docking station. He climbed out, his muscles aching from the morning's work, and headed to the locker room. After a quick wash and change into casual clothes, he decided to visit the marketplace. His daughter's birthday was coming up in 2 weeks, and he wanted to find something special to send her. The packages took nearly a month to reach Earth, so he needed to shop soon. The marketplace on Olympus 7 was a wonder that never ceased to amaze Marcus, even after 3 years. It occupied 3 entire levels of the station, a sprawling complex where traders from across known space sold their goods. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, some pleasant and others decidedly not. Holographic advertisements flickered in dozens of languages, while vendors called out their wares in a chaos of alien tongues that his translator earpiece struggled to keep up with. Marcus walked past stalls selling crystalline jewelry from the Lumina system, exotic foods from worlds he couldn't pronounce, and technological gadgets that seemed like magic. He paused at a toy vendor stall, examining a selection of educational games popular among human children. The vendor, a friendly Pixen with bright orange fur, enthusiastically demonstrated how each toy worked. Marcus was considering a holographic puzzle cube when a commotion erupted nearby. Raised voices echoed to the marketplace corridor. Marcus turned to see a crowd gathering around something he couldn't quite see. His instinct was to ignore it and continue shopping. Station security was well-trained and usually responded quickly to disturbances. But something about the tone of the voices, the edge of fear in them, made him move closer instead. As he pushed through the gathering crowd, Marcus saw what was causing the panic. A small creature, no taller than his waist, was backed against a closed shop door. The being had a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed dark green under marketplace lights, with her arms clutched protectively around itself. Large, multifaceted eyes reflected terror. Marcus recognized the species immediately. Krell, one of the insectoid races that had only recently opened diplomatic relations with the broader galactic community. Surrounding the child, because Marcus could now see it was clearly a juvenile, were 5 figures dressed in mismatched armor and carrying weapons. Raiders, Marcus realized with a sinking feeling. The marketplace attracted all types, including those who preyed on the vulnerable. The leader of the group, a scarred Draxian with dark red scales, was speaking in a threatening tone that Marcus's translator rendered as demands for valuables. The Krell child responded in a high-pitched, clicking language that Marcus's earpiece couldn't translate properly. Whatever it said only seemed to anger the raiders more. One of them, a hulking Bruton with gray skin and tusks, grabbed the child with one massive hand. The child cried out, a sound that pierced through the marketplace noise and struck something deep in Marcus's chest. The crowd around them was large but passive. People recorded the incident on their devices, whispered each other, but nobody intervened. Marcus understood why. Getting involved in violence on the station could lead to legal complications, potential deportation, or worse. The raiders were clearly dangerous, armed with energy weapons and blades. It would be foolish to interfere. Marcus found himself moving forward anyway. He didn't plan it, didn't think it through. One moment he was standing in the crowd, and the next he was stepping between the raiders and the Krell child. "Leave the kid alone," he heard himself say in Mandarin, before his translator converted it to common Galactic. The raiders turned their attention to him. The Draxian leader tilted his head, his reptilian features showing something between amusement and irritation. "Human," he said, the word dripping with contempt. "This doesn't concern you. Walk away." Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. His hands were trembling, but he kept them at his sides, trying to appear calm. "I can't do that," he said. "Station law protects juveniles of all species from harassment. You're breaking about 6 regulations right now." The Draxian laughed, a harsh sound. "Station law. And who'll enforce it? The security guards who patrol this level once every 30 minutes. He stepped closer to Marcus, close enough that Marcus could smell the reptilian musk of his breath. "I ask you again, human. Walk away, or you'll regret your heroism." Behind him, Marcus could hear the Krell child's rapid breathing, feel the trembling of its small body against his legs. He thought of his own daughter, safe back on Earth. He thought of all the times he'd wished he could have been braver, stronger, more than just a cargo handler who'd failed at his previous life. "No," Marcus said quietly. "I won't walk away." The first blade came faster than Marcus expected. He'd taken basic self-defense courses as part of his station employment, but nothing had prepared him for real combat. He managed to dodge the initial strike from the Draxian's knife, but the Bruton's blade caught him across the left shoulder. Pain exploded through his arm as the weapon sliced through his shirt and into flesh. Marcus stumbled backward, his hand instinctively going to the wound. Blood seeped between his fingers, warm and sticky. The raiders spread out, forming a loose circle around him and the child. He could hear screaming from the crowd, people backing away from the violence. In the distance, an alarm began to sound. Someone had finally called security. "You chose poorly, human," the Draxian said, advancing with his blade held ready. "Now you'll pay for your interference." What happened next became a blur of pain and desperation. Marcus had no weapons, no armor, nothing but his determination to keep the raiders away from the child behind him. He dodged when he could, blocked with his arms when he couldn't, and took hit after hit. A blade slashed across his ribs. Another cut deep into his right thigh. He felt a burning pain across his back, then his left arm, then his abdomen. He lost count of the wounds. Each one seemed to add to a growing numbness that spread through his body. His vision narrowed, tunneling down until all he could see were the raiders in front of him. He stumbled, fell to one knee, and forced himself back up. The Krell child was still behind him, still safe. That was all that mattered. The Draxian came at him again, blade aimed at Marcus's chest. Marcus tried to dodge, but his legs wouldn't respond properly anymore. The blade pierced his side, sliding between his ribs with a sensation that was almost cold rather than hot. He gasped, tasting copper in his mouth. "Stubborn fool," the Draxian hissed, twisting the blade. Marcus grabbed the raider's wrist with both hands, holding on with the last of his strength. Blood ran down his arms, making his grip slippery, but he refused to let go. If he could just hold them off a little longer, security would arrive. Just a little longer. Another blade struck him from behind, sliding into his back near his spine. Marcus's legs gave out completely, and he collapsed forward, still gripping the Draxian's wrist. They fell together in a tangle, and Marcus heard the raider cursing, trying to pull his blade free. The marketplace floor was cold against Marcus's cheek. Strange how he could feel that so clearly when the rest of his body seemed distant and numb. Through failing eyes, Marcus saw boots running toward them. Black boots with white stripes. Station security. They'd made it in time. The child would be safe. The thought brought him a strange sense of peace even as darkness crept in from the edges of his vision. He heard energy weapons firing, heard the raiders shouting as they scattered. Strong hands rolled him over, and he found himself looking up at a security officer's face. The officer was saying something urgent, his lips moving rapidly, but Marcus couldn't make out the words over the roaring in his ears. The last thing Marcus saw before unconsciousness claimed him was the Krell child, standing safely behind a wall of security officers, its large eyes fixed on him with an expression he couldn't read. Then the darkness swallowed everything, and Marcus Chin knew nothing more. When the medical team arrived 2 minutes later, they found Marcus Chin lying in a pool of his own blood, having sustained 8 separate blade wounds. The senior medic, a veteran of 30 years, took one look at the human and shook her head. "Get him to emergency surgery now," she ordered. "And notify Earth Embassy. This one's a hero, even if he doesn't survive to know it." The Krell child, identified quickly by security as a member of the Hive Queen's royal brood, watched as they loaded the bleeding human onto a stretcher. The child's mandibles clicked rapidly in a pattern that translated roughly as distress and gratitude, an emotion pattern that would soon spread across the entire Krell civilization, changing the course of human-alien relations forever. But Marcus Chun, the cargo handler from Shanghai who had simply refused to walk away when a child needed help, knew none of this as they rushed him to surgery, his life hanging by the thinnest of threads. The awakening, Marcus became aware of existence in fragments. First came the sensation of breathing, air moving in and out of his lungs with mechanical precision. Then sound, a soft rhythmic beeping that seemed to match his heartbeat. Finally, feeling returned to his body, though it was muted and distant, as if his nerves were wrapped in cotton. He tried to open his eyes, but his eyelids felt impossibly heavy. How long had he been unconscious? Hours? Days? The memories came slowly, disjointed images that didn't quite fit together. The marketplace, the child, the blades, pain, so much pain, and then darkness. With tremendous effort, Marcus forced his eyes open. The light was dim and had a strange quality to it, slightly blue-tinted in a way that Earth lighting never was. The ceiling above him was smooth and curved, made of material that seemed to shimmer with iridescent patterns. This wasn't the station medical bay. He'd been there before for minor injuries, and it looked nothing like this. His head felt foggy, his thoughts moving through thick syrup, but alarm began to cut through the haze. Where was he? Marcus tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain flared across his torso, sharp enough to make him gasp. Instantly, a soft chiming sound filled the room, and a door he hadn't noticed slid open with a whisper. A figure entered, moving with quick, precise steps. As it approached his bed, Marcus's eyes widened in recognition and confusion. The being was Krell, but unlike the small child he protected, this one was fully grown, standing nearly 7 feet tall. The chitinous exoskeleton was a deep emerald green that seemed to shift colors in the strange light, for arms moved with practiced efficiency, 2 reaching for medical instruments while the other 2 made adjusting gestures over a holographic display that appeared in the air. The Krell spoke, and Marcus's translator earpiece, still somehow in his ear, converted the clicking and chirping sounds into words. "Be still, Marcus Chun. Your injuries are severe, and movement will impede healing. You are safe now." The voice was calm and clinical, exactly what he'd expect from a medical professional. But there was something else underneath it, a warmth that transcended species. Marcus's mind was racing despite the fog. "Where am I?" he managed to ask, his voice coming out as a hoarse whisper. His throat felt like sandpaper. The Krell physician moved aside his bed, one hand reaching for a nearby container. "You are on Krell Prime, in the Royal Medical Complex. You have been in induced stasis for 17 standard days while we work to save your life." The physician offered him water through a curved straw, and Marcus drank gratefully, the cool liquid soothing his parched throat. 17 days. The number seemed impossible. And Krell Prime? That was halfway across the sector from Olympus 7. How did I get here? Marcus asked, his thoughts slowly becoming clearer. Why am I here? The physician's mandibles clicked in what Marcus's translator identified as a gesture of respect. You were transported here immediately after emergency surgery stabilized your condition on the station. The Hive Queen herself ordered your transfer. She wanted our best physicians attending to the human who saved her youngest offspring. The words took a moment to fully register in Marcus's mind. Hive Queen, youngest offspring. The child he protected wasn't just any Krell juvenile. It was royalty. The implications of this swirled through his thoughts, but before he could formulate a response, the door opened again. This time, 3 figures entered, and Marcus knew immediately they were different from a physician. They moved with a predatory grace, their bodies covered in what appeared to be organic armor that was part exoskeleton and part fitted plating. Each carried weapons that seemed to grow from their very bodies, blade-like protrusions that could probably retract when not needed. Their coloring was darker than the physician's, a deep black with red markings that seemed to pulse faintly. These were warriors, and everything about them radiated controlled danger. The Krell physician stepped back respectfully as the 3 warriors approached Marcus's bed. They stood in silence for a long moment, their multifaceted eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Marcus deeply uncomfortable. He was acutely aware of how vulnerable he was, lying injured in a bed with no idea where his clothes were, much less any means of defending himself. Not that he could defend himself against Krell warriors, even at full health. Finally, the center warrior spoke, its voice deeper and more resonant than the physician's. Marcus Chen of Earth. I am Striker Prime Catholic of the Hive Guard Elite. We have come to witness the human who demonstrated warriors' honor. The translator struggled slightly with the term, offering alternative translations like battle dignity and combat righteousness. But Marcus understood the essential meaning. He'd done something these warriors respected. Catholic continued, taking a step closer to the bed. You sustained 8 blade wounds protecting a hive royal. You maintained your position until security forces arrived. You did not flee, did not falter, did not abandon your charge even when your own death was certain. This is the core teaching of our warrior caste. To protect the hive above self. To stand when others flee. To embrace death rather than failure. The warrior's mandibles clicked rapidly, and his translator offered profound respect as the emotional context. The warrior to Cathick's left, slightly smaller but no less dangerous looking, spoke next. I am Blade Master's Riss. In 800 years of Krell history, since we joined the Galactic community, no alien has ever demonstrated true warrior's honor. We believe it was unique to our species, encoded in our very nature. Zris moved around the bed, studying Marcus from different angles, as if he were a fascinating specimen. You have proven us wrong. Human, your species may not have exoskeletons or natural weapons, but you possess something equally valuable, the will to sacrifice. The third warrior, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. This one's voice was slightly higher-pitched, and Marcus's translator identified the speaker as female. I am Shield Commander Vex. The warrior caste is convened, and we have reached consensus. Marcus Chun, you've been granted honorary status as Warrior of the Hive. No alien has ever received this honor. The Hive Queen will formalize this recognition when you are recovered enough to attend court. Marcus's head was spinning, and not just from the lingering effects of whatever medications they had him on. Honorary Warrior of the Hive? He was a cargo handler who'd simply refused to let a child get hurt. He hadn't been thinking about honor or warrior codes, or anything except keeping those blades away from a terrified kid. I don't understand, he said honestly. I just did what anyone would do, what anyone should do. Cathick's mandibles clicked again, this time what the translator identified as disagreement. No, Marcus Chun, what you did is what warriors do. The marketplace was full of people. Hundreds witnessed the attack. None intervened. Only you. This is not what anyone would do. This is what the exceptional do. Before Marcus could respond, the door opened once more. This time, the figure that entered made even the elite warriors step back respectfully. The newcomer was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with an exoskeleton that seemed to shimmer with every color of the spectrum. Gold, silver, green, blue, all flowing across the surface like living light. For arms, like all Krell, but these moved with an authority that suggested absolute power. A crown of what looked like crystallized chitin rose from the head in elegant, sweeping curves. Marcus didn't need the translator to tell him who this was. The Hive Queen, ruler of billions of Krell across dozens of worlds. One of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. And she was standing in his medical room. The queen moved forward with surprising grace for her size, and the warriors immediately dropped into deep bows, their bodies nearly parallel to the floor. The physician had already prostrated completely. Marcus tried to sit up again, feeling it was disrespectful to remain lying down in the presence of royalty, but the queen raised one hand in a stopping gesture. "Be still, Marcus Chun," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that his translator couldn't fully capture. "You have already shown more than enough respect through your actions." She moved to the bedside, looking down at him with eyes that held an intelligence and depth that transcended species. "My youngest child, Crix, will be dead if not for you. The raiders intended to kidnap and ransom the royal brood. We have since captured them all, and they have confirmed this plan. You disrupted their scheme with your intervention." Marcus swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry again despite the water he'd drunk. "Your Majesty, I didn't know Crix was royal. I just saw a scared kid who needed help." The queen's mandibles moved in a complex pattern that his translator rendered as profound appreciation mixed with amusement. "Yes, we know. This makes your action more valuable, not less. You asked no questions about status or reward. You saw a child of another species in danger, and you acted. You nearly died for a being you had never met and might never see again. This is the definition of selfless courage." She turned slightly, gesturing with two of her arms, and the door opened again. A small figure entered, moving with the uncertain steps of youth. Crix, the child Marcus had protected, looked much better than the terrified juvenile he remembered from the marketplace. The young Krell's exoskeleton gleamed with health, and though still small, there was a regal quality to the way Crix carried himself now that he was in familiar surroundings. Crix approached the bed slowly, then performed a bow that, while clearly still being practiced, carried genuine feeling. "Marcus Chin," the young voice said, high and clear, "you saved my life. You took blades meant for me. The Hive remembers. Crix remembers. I will remember until my last day." Something in Marcus's chest tightened at the earnest declaration. This was why he'd done it. Not for honor or recognition, but for this. A child, alive and safe, with a future ahead of them. "I'm glad you're okay, Crix," Marcus said softly. "That's all I wanted." The Hive Queen placed one hand gently on her child's shoulder. "Crix will grow to be a leader of our people. Your sacrifice has given the Hive a future it might have lost. But your actions have implications beyond the personal, Marcus Chun. Earth has long sought deeper trade relations, an alliance with the Krell Confederation. We have been cautious, as is our nature. We needed to understand humanity better, to see if your species shared values that align with ours." She gestured broadly, encompassing the room and by extension, the entire situation. "You have answered questions we did not even know to ask. Humanity is capable of interspecies empathy and self-sacrifice. You risked everything for one of our young with no expectation of reward. This speaks to your species' character more than any diplomatic negotiation could." Marcus was beginning to understand where this was going, and the implications were staggering. His impulsive decision to protect a child was having consequences that extended far beyond one person. The Hive Queen continued, her voice taking on a more formal tone. "The Hive Council has convened and reached unanimous consensus. We are offering Earth a platinum-tier alliance, the highest level of diplomatic and economic integration available. Immediate access to Krell biotechnology, medical advancements, and trade routes, joint scientific ventures and military cooperation, cultural exchange programs and educational initiatives. All of this begins with you, Marcus Chan." The room seemed to spin slightly, and Marcus wasn't sure if it was a medication or the sheer weight of what he was hearing. A platinum-tier alliance? Such agreements were rare, reserved for only the most trusted species. Earth had been trying to achieve even a basic trade agreement with the Krell for years. "I don't understand," Marcus said weakly. "I'm just a cargo handler. How can my actions lead to something this big?" Catholic, the Striker Prime, spoke up from where he still stood at attention. "Because you represent the best of what humanity can be. If an ordinary worker with no training and no obligation can demonstrate perfect warrior's honor, then humanity as a whole has proven its worth." The Hive Queen nodded agreement. We do not judge species by their exceptional individuals alone. We judge by what the average citizen will do when tested. You were tested, Marcus Chun, and you exceeded all expectations. Earth's diplomatic representatives have already been notified of our decision. They arrived on Krell Prime 2 days ago and have been in preliminary negotiations. She paused, her multifaceted eyes studying him carefully. But there is one more matter to address. The Hive Council wishes to offer you personally a position. We need someone who can bridge the gap between our species, someone who understands both human and Krell perspectives, someone who has proven their commitment to cross-species cooperation in the most dramatic way possible. Marcus had a feeling he knew what was coming, but he waited for the Queen to continue. We are creating a new position, Cultural Bridge Ambassador. You would work directly with both Earth's Diplomatic Corps and the Hive Council, facilitating understanding and cooperation between our species. You would have resources, staff, and authority to address issues before they become problems. You would help write the future of human-Krell relations. The Queen leaned slightly closer. We understand this is not a small ask. You have a life, a family on Earth. We would arrange regular transport for visits. Your daughter would be welcome to visit, or even live here if she chose. Your compensation would be substantial. But more than any of that, you would be doing work that matters, Marcus Chun. Work that could shape the future for billions of beings. Marcus's mind raced through the implications. Leave his cargo handling job? Become a diplomat? Something he had no training for? Represent his entire species in cooperation with an alien civilization? It seemed impossible. But then again, standing against 5 armed raiders to protect a child he didn't know had seemed impossible too. And he'd done that. He thought of his daughter back on Earth, of the limited opportunities available to her in their crowded, struggling world. He thought of the medical advancements the Hive Queen had mentioned. How many human lives could be saved with Krell biotechnology? He thought of the broader implications of humanity finally having a true ally among the stars. And he thought of Crix, standing there watching him with those large, multifaceted eyes. The child he'd saved. The future he'd protected. If he could make sure that future was bright not just for one Krell child, but for humans and Krell together, wasn't that worth the risk? Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the pull of healing wounds across his chest and abdomen. Physical reminders of what he'd already sacrificed for this connection between their species. I'll do it, he said quietly. I'll be your Cultural Bridge Ambassador. I'll help build this alliance. The Hive Queen's mandibles clicked in what his translator identified as joy. Then it is done. When you are healed, your new life begins. The Hive celebrates your choice, Marcus Chun. You came to us as a wounded hero. You will leave as a bridge between worlds. Catholic and the other elite warriors struck their chests with their primary arms in a synchronized gesture that Marcus's translator identified as a salute of highest respect. Even the physician, still standing respectfully to the side, clicked their mandibles in approval as the Hive Queen and her entourage prepared to leave, giving Marcus time to rest and recover. The Queen paused at the door. One more thing, Marcus Chun. In Krell culture, we mark significant events with symbolic gestures. When you are recovered enough, we will hold a ceremony. You will receive the Scar of Honor, a biometallic marking that will show any Krell who sees it that you are a warrior of the Hive. It is permanent, and it is offered only to those who have proven themselves beyond question. Will you accept this as well? Marcus didn't hesitate. If he was going to bridge 2 cultures, he needed to show respect for Krell traditions even when they were unfamiliar. I would be honored, Your Majesty. The Queen's mandibles clicked one final time in approval, and then she was gone, the elite warriors and Crix following behind her. The physician approached to check Marcus's vital signs, mandibles moving in gentle concern. You should rest now, Ambassador. Your body has been through significant trauma, and emotional stress will slow healing. Ambassador. The title felt strange, but also right in a way Marcus couldn't quite explain. As the physician dimmed the lights and left him alone, Marcus stared up at the shimmering ceiling of his room on an alien world halfway across the sector from everything he'd known. His old life, loading cargo and living in obscurity, was over. His new life, one of purpose and meaning beyond anything he'd imagined, was just beginning. He'd taken 8 blades for a child he didn't know. In return, he'd been given the opportunity to help shape the future of 2 species. As Marcus drifted off to sleep, healing and dreaming of the possibilities ahead, he thought that perhaps it was the best trade anyone had ever made. The galaxy's finest had gathered at his bedside not because he was exceptional, but because he'd done what was right. And in doing so, he'd proven that humanity, for all its flaws and limitations, had something valuable to offer the stars. The courage to act when action was needed, regardless of the cost.